everyone. My name is Vivek Kumar, and I welcome you to my YouTube channel Siksha Sarthi. Today, we are going to talk about Chapter 2.4 of National Curriculum Framework 2022, meant for foundational stage. So, the basic idea that we'll discuss in today's video is the competencies. So, the first developmental domain that has been mentioned in NCF 2022 is the physical development. So, physical development is a developmental domain. Under this developmental domain, there are three curricular goals. And for every curricular goal, there are some competencies which have been mapped. So, total number of competencies that have been mapped under physical developmental domain is 16. So before I start, let's recap what competencies are all about. So competencies are derived from the curricular goals of National Curriculum Framework. And these competencies are supposed to be achieved by the end of the foundational stage, not by the end of the term or academic year examination. So it means the educators, the schools, the teachers, they have 5 years of time to help children to develop these competencies, because foundational stage is made for the children 3 to 8 years old. So we take 5 years of duration. Competency is generally defined as a combination of skills, knowledge, behaviors, enables any perform any given task or activity successfully. And it is very clear that competencies can be measured. These are observable, measurable, and can be assessed very systematically. To assess the competencies, the level of competencies achieved, there are granular milestones which we'll discuss in next other videos, that are the learning outcomes. So today we are going to talk about only the competencies, and definitely in the domain physical development under different curricular goals. So let's begin. The first curricular goal under the domain physical development is children develop habits that keep them healthy and safe. Now, what does it mean? इसका मतलब ये है कि बच्चे पौष्टिक भोजन, यानी जो हेल्दी फूड है, न्यूट्रिशियस फूड है, उसको लेकर एक पसंद हो उनकी, वो उसे पसंद करते हो, और ना सिर्फ पसंद करते हो, उसकी इम्पोर्टेंस, अहमियत को भी समझते हो, एंड दे शुड नॉट वेस्ट फूड. So how do we assess, whether this competency has been achieved by the child or not? So there are, certain set of five, or more than five in some cases, learning outcomes. So how do we understand whether it has been achieved or not? So like whether we see whether the child is able to identify the things which can be eaten, which cannot be eaten. Whether the child is able to, differentiate between the healthy and unhealthy food items kept in a shop, maybe placed somewhere else. And the child, whether he or she gives reasons, logical reasons why some foods are classified as healthy and some are unhealthy, whether he eats from a variety of food, from different food groups like grains, vegetables, fruits, and so on, and whether he takes only that much of amount or portion which he or she can consume, so that he or she does not waste the food, whether he or she eats food without spilling. So this is how we, check the competency number one. Now, when it comes to competency number two, child practices basic self care and hygiene. यानी या क्या वो बहुत बेसिक अपना ख्याल रख पाता है, हाइजीन मेंटेन कर पाता है या नहीं, right? So how do we understand, and how do we basically evaluate this? So we'll see, whether the child does the basic self-care habits follows or not, like washing and drying of hands before and after going to toilet or eating, whether he or she wear clothes and footwear slowly and gradually, at the end of this stage independently, whether he or she uses personal care objects appropriately and, you know, like combs, brushes on his or her own, whether he takes care of all these personal belongings appropriately. The third competency is keeps school and classroom hygienic and organized. So the child, he or she, whether he or she is aware of his or her belongings, like school bag, pencil box, bottles, shoes, books, etc. Whether he or she maintains his or her personal belongings in good shape, handles the study materials, books, copies carefully, appropriately, takes care of the school property and etc., like furniture, library, books, etc., appropriately, uses a dustbin to dispose of waste, and finally, at the end of the stage, whether he or she is able to segregate wet and dry waste or not. So, something like this. Then, competency number four practices safe use of material and simple tools, like avoiding danger by not touching harmful objects, like something which is hot, fire, like hot stove, knife, nail cutters, electricity, plugs and pins. Using of harmful, handles harmful or dangerous objects with care. Use of simple tools independently, like scissors, knife, nail cutters, etc. Competency number five shows awareness of safety in movements and acts appropriately. It means the child understands the road safety as a very important information or knowledge that has to be understood and practiced. While crossing the roads, holding hands of adults, walking on the, you know, road side is important, following safety rules, looking both the ways while crossing the roads, recognizing safety symbols, and then avoiding dangers like symbols for electric, fire, repairing, digging, etc. And also identifies and understands the symbols like signal lights, zebra crossing, U-turn, etc. Follows the basic traffic rules. The next one is shows awareness of safety in movements and acts appropriately. Yes. So this we have discussed. Next one is understands safe situations and asks for help. Now, this is very, very important in nowadays for these small children, and we have to do a lot to make them understand how do you sense, how do you, guess that the situation is it unsafe or safe, and how do you ask for the help so that the dangerous person or the person who wants to, hurt you, you know, avoids actually hurting you the way you ask for help. So what all we need to do for the children and what all do we need to assess them later on. So we have to make them to understand, differentiate between familiar and strange people, adults, communicate their discomfort in case if they find themselves in discomfort in any situation or with any person. So they should communicate their discomfort with the trusted adult. I repeat, trusted adult is very important, with not anybody, simply. They should not accept toys, chocolates, gifts, etc. from the people, those who are not trusted or those who are strange for them. They should also understand the difference between safe and unsafe means good and bad touch. They should maintain distance from the strangers. They should seek help from adults when there is any injury or anything that is unexpected. They should also identify people in our community, in our neighborhood, in our society, those who are helpful for us, like doctors, like firefighters, like police officers, right? So these are some of the ways we can, help them to understand and develop this competency, especially competency number six. Let's go to next curricular goal, that is, children develop sharpness in sensorial perceptions. So now, what is sensorial perception? There's something we need to understand. So sensorial perception is basically the capacity of any individual which helps him or her to detect, sense, or experience any happening or change in the environment by using five senses. So we have to develop the sharpness in understanding and using the sensorial perceptions for our day-to-day life. So what is the first one? First competency here is differentiates between shapes, colors, and shades. So the child, how do we make them to do it? So by helping them to differentiate and name the primary colors: red, blue, yellow, and other colors which are common in our surrounding, in our environment. We should help them to differentiate shades with primary colors and later on secondary colors. We should help them to be capable of experimenting and using the colors in different art forms, like for decoration, for making drawing, display, etc. They should be able to group objects based on their color and pattern, and finally they should be in a position to make patterns, colors, based on colors and the other attributes. Competency number 8 helps develop visual memory for symbols and representations. Now, visual memory has been considered very, very important for these children, especially for 3 to 6 or 10 years old. Why? Because if the visual memory is, you know, the way visual memory skills are good, the children would be in a position to identify and differentiate two letters, two numerals, two symbols, and which will help them to further learn learn the language and basic literacy and numeracy skills. So how do we do this? We give them, we ask them to match maybe two symbols, two letters, identify the letters which is the odd one out, something like this. Match two visual symbols with the same pattern, match symbols with different patterns, something like this will help us to develop their visual memory skills and representations. Maybe matching. So puzzles help a lot here. So maybe matching one particular image of a particular building with the other four images, in which one of the image is similar to that particular image, so something like this. Then next comes as differentiates multiple smells and tastes. Now this is again very, very important. So smell and memories, even touch and memories, are very, very closely associated. So if you lose your smell, it will have an impact on your memory. If you lose your taste, it will have impact on your memory. And finally, losing sense of smell will also affect your overall health condition. This is very scientific. So we have to help them to understand different differences between smells and tastes, like good smell, bad smell, like perfume, flower. The bad smell means garbage. They should also be in a position to recognize the smells which indicate danger, indicate something which is not good for us. Let's say the rotten apple, rotten fruit, vegetable, or egg. So if they smell, the child is able to smell the rottenness of fruit, vegetable, then only he or she will decide not to eat it. So that has to be developed. The next competencies develops discrimination in the sense of touch. Now here this touch is different from what we have already discussed. It is not good or bad touch. It is about the sense to differentiate, to understand the softness and hardness, hotness and coldness, by touching the smoothness and roughness of surfaces. So when you touch, you are able to say, whether it is cold or hot. So let's say hop a cup of, hot tea. So you touch the surface of the cup and you would tell that it is hot. So it is dangerous not to be touched again. Then comparing and, classifying objects based on the hardness and softness, hotness and coldness, roughness and smoothness. And finally, going into more finer variations of the surfaces, the touch based surfaces like fluffy, woven, prickly, something like this. The next one is to the sixth one under this domain is begins integrating sensorial perceptions to get a holistic awareness of their experiences. So this is basically, maintaining or basically about coordination between what you sense, detect, or experience in your environment through your senses and what you do, especially your body movement, you know, like turning heads and closing hands, etc. So this is something which, we'll discuss in detail when we talk about the learning outcomes. But this is related to yoga to an extent, like sits or lies still for a short time. A child sits still and pays attention to his or her breath for shorter duration and slowly, gradually longer period of time. Breathing in, breathing out exercises, etc. comes under this competency. Now, the third curricular goal is under the physical developmental domain. The third curricular goal is children develop fit and flexible body. We all understand this is very, very important. So, what are the four competencies? You know that comes under this curricular goal. So, the first one is shows coordination between sensorial perceptions and body movements in various activities. Right. So, how do we do this? And what are the activities, learning outcomes suggested? So catching and throwing of balls with a very basic control, even kicking the balls. So slowly, gradually, showing accuracy and precision in catching, throwing balls, and throwing and hitting some object. The next competencies shows balance, coordination, and flexibility in various physical activities. So it's like standing on one foot with or without support, standing on one foot for a longer period of time without support, hopping, jumping, balancing on one foot, balancing on surfaces, bricks, walking by balancing, keeping a maybe book on your head and then balancing. So something like this. So you show good body balance with the speed when you ride bicycle, when you jump, when you climb, when you run, when you hold objects, right? So this is all about shows balance, coordination, and flexibility in various physical activities. Now, competency number 15 shows precision and control in working with their hands and fingers. Means we are talking about fine motor skills like eye hand coordination, muscle strength for doing simple activities like scribbling, pasting, tearing paper along with the line given, clay work, etc. Drawing lines, curved lines, cutting along with the straight and curved line, and so on. Then craft and art work with precision, using coordinated movements of fine motor skills for working on activities which require more precision, like all the activities with beads, threads, and legible writing of letters, etc. Holding glass with one hand, use of spoon properly while eating, you know, catching a ball that jumps from the floor, and so on. So the next 16th one is, which is the last competency under the domain physical development, is shows strength and endurance in carrying, walking, and running. So you you know, what all does, it mean? Walking in a straight line, walking backward, walking and running easily, especially when you change the direction and speed, walking on curved zigzag line, crawling inside, the tunnels, walking on toes with hands held above the head, climbing and jumping from the small tree or small heights, etc. So whether the child is able to maintain that balance and walking or running for, let's say, 500 meters, 1 kilometer, so that much of strength and endurance the child has developed or not. So all these are the competencies. There are basically three curricular goals and 16 competencies which come under the developmental domain, physical development. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you must have liked it. Please do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe my channel Siksha Sarthi. Thank you so much.